Hi there, thanks for joining us from Automation Fair 2025 here in Chicago. I'm Justin Garski, I manage our OEM segment for packaging and converting. With me today I've got my good friend.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Surya Solian. I'm the Vice President of Engineering and Manufacturing for Harpak-ULMA.
And so over the last few years, you've been in our innovation booth before, you've presented some really cool things, and as you've made that shift into your position at Harpak, you guys have come out with some even more interesting things that continue to be on the horizon. What's the most exciting leap you've seen come out in the last couple of years as it relates to automation and packaging?
Yeah, so thank you for having us here again. We've been together in the past, but to your question, something interesting happens when you take a step back and you look at automation as a system versus looking at automation as a smart machine, right? So our focus really is developing a smarter system versus a smarter machine. Even though the smarter machine is a part of the system as itself, as an ecosystem, has to be smarter. So what that means is, as far as how can we apply it, I think having standards that are clearly defined, right, as far as control platform, componentry, having some sort of mutuality between the machines makes that story easier, and it makes it more of a value proposition for the end user. Because of the industries that we're in, we're trying to eliminate a lot of touch points. So for food and beverage specific to protein loading, we're looking at standardizing that using an on-machine robot solution, right? So most of the instances would show that once you remove the touch point, right, then the whole line gets better. And on top of everything else, we're looking to offer measurable OEE and measurable data that basically validates our effort, right? So I think that standards are important. Controlling the variability is important, right? So removing the human. And being able to aggregate and deliver the data as the validation tool to the end user, right, is also very important.
And what I like about what you said there is that line approach, and I think you guys are uniquely positioned to be able to take that on from beginning to end of the whole process, so that fits in great. And that kind of bleeds into this next one. So when we think about more automation, we talk about robots and things, like the costing of these things, the ROI continues to expand. What are some things that you look at it and go, man, this is the low-hanging fruit where you can't not do it?
So it's an interesting question, and it's something that we're always validating and engaging with our end user group, right, to figure out, hey, what makes the most sense to you, or where do you see the most value that we can deliver? I think that more automation, usually people start thinking of, hey, dollar sign, versus, hey, how can I improve my process, right, versus the actual upfront cost.
Yeah.
So typically the lowest hanging fruit is anything that is a high touch. So again, I'm going to go back to primary loading, or even in our other segments, the pharma segment. Anything that we have to take out of the human's hand, right, delivers more of a value because we can control the process. We're getting closer to quote unquote lights out, but not really lights out. And we're able to basically improve OEE throughout the whole system. Another opportunity, right, and this is done not just by us, but by the industry as a whole, end-of-line automation is something that ties in the process, right? So downstream, palletizing, shrink wrapping, all the things that are incumbent to the space, right, we still leverage, but we're doing it holistically where it's the system that delivers the value, not just the one piece of equipment.
No, and that kind of bleeds into this next one, where as we talk about labor challenges, you and I talk about this a lot.
A lot, yeah.
And the brain drain and the energy of new employees, right? This is a real challenge, and we're being nice about it here today.
Yeah.
But as we look at that and we think, okay, we want to get towards lights out, how close are we, and what's standing in the way maybe?
It's a good question. I think that the term lights out, it's a little bit misleading because it's more suited for industries where the process has less variability and more control. So picture automotive, for example, right, where lights out means the line runs, there's very little human interaction with the line. I think that for our segment specifically, we have lights out, but it's a lighter version of lights out where there's still a human in the loop that does the supervision, right? The food and beverage industry as a whole has an inherent issue with variability. So, variability in the product, variability in the processes, variability in even cartoning, right? Yeah. For example, there's a lot of variability there. So we still need a human in the loop. I think that we're close. And really how we empower the workforce is by having the ecosystem and being able to deliver, right, predictive maintenance, toolless changeovers, guided workflow. We've looked at the industry and really how the humans are interacting with the machines at the user level. And I think that there's a need for having the ability to basically walk the person through solving a problem, doing a changeover where, he looks at the screen, the machine already tells him exactly where to start, right? And then through the validation process he goes through, right? So it's still a measure of control that we have to bring to help the workforce along. I think that the workforce problem is going to be a problem that's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So the more that we can give them and the more tools that we can have at our disposal, the better it is, right? But what that means is we have to embrace everything as an ecosystem, right? And from the controls platform, we have to look at that, right, as the ecosystem that we could build stuff on, right? So the predictive maintenance, the OE, the AI stuff, even though has no application in the space, but yeah, I think that we're trying to be at the forefront, but we also have to be realistic with what's measurable and what's not.
So we probably got time for two more questions.
Yeah.
The one we're going to cover, our favorite topic, robots, near and dear.
Yay,
robots, right? When you see these sorts of things showing up on the floor, and knowing that you guys are in a hygienic, clean room, sort of a wash-down environment, what's that landscape look like between robots and cobots and pros and cons?
It's a good question. It's a question that I think that the industry is struggling to answer as a whole. As far as the use case, we use both. So cobots typically lend themselves to low throughput, high SKU, seasonality. So for example, if we have a customer that produces one type of product seasonally, it doesn't make sense from a value proposition to say, hey, you're going to need a 400 kilogram palletizing robot to do this. It doesn't make sense, right? From an investment perspective and from us being able to deliver on our value proposition. Where they fit in, I think small and medium enterprise love the cobots. There's very low entry point, right? I think that there's a little bit of a feel-good aspect to it when you could do it yourself. So I think that the cobot story really ties into the democratizing of automation, which again is a term that the industry is sort of trying to figure out, because if you democratize it, then the OEMs don't deliver value, right? So there's a fine line. I think also that cobots now being in the industry are trying to solve problems that we don't have, and we never really had. But we're throwing them at everything. We're developing new standards because of cobots that don't need to apply to machine builders and a bunch of other things. So the cobots have a place in the industry. Again, people that have very low throughput, right? The food and beverage industry basically pays for itself in high throughput, right? Low margin. So we have a mix of both, but typically if we did a system, right, because we started talking about systems, then the end of the line would basically be a full-blown palletizing solution that could run lights out, for example.
Sure.
Right?
So the last question I've got for you here in Chicago, you've been to Automation Fair a handful of times.
I have.
What's the one thing that really made your week, or what are you happiest about seeing here?
I think that we're starting to see the collective effort of the industry over the last couple of years, right? And this is the first year that I returned, not as a person that is exhibiting something, but just as a person that could take everything in. I'm glad to see that the data-ready stuff is finally out. I'm glad to see that the awesome line of touchscreens is finally out, and it's more or less a mature product for Rockwell Automation, even though it was mature prior. Some of the advances in the drive technology are very interesting, where we're basically, again, to the value proposition, we're able to leverage a lot of these technologies and distributed technologies, right, to give a better product, to give a better line, and then tie it all together into one system that can have the connectivity, can have the OE, can have all these other metrics that we could do with a very low lift, right? So those are the things that resonate with me most.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us here this morning at Automation Fair 2025 Chicago. We'll leave you guys all to it at home, and thanks for joining.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.